After having nothing good to talk about in the past couple of weeks, I decided that it would be a good idea to indulge myself in catching up with the video games that I missed, because a lot of my viewers have concerns in my lack of gaming time lately. It's quite odd that my subscribers of all people are telling me to play video games and watch anime. Usually subscribers tell their content creators to keep making content, but ever since I showed hundreds of hours in Vegas Pro, tons of people tell me that I should stop and actually play some video games or watch some anime. So I did. I played a couple of video games, but that would result in me not having a video on. How about this? Let me tell you about my experience on the games that I play. This isn't exactly a review of the games per se, it's just my personal experience and what I think about the game as a whole, which could probably count as a review, but a review is going to be a lot more structured. This is just me sharing my thoughts and experiences with the game in an incoherent manner. So now I want to talk about Far Cry 5 and my experience with this game. It is certainly what I expected at some point, but it is also not what I expected at some. So where to begin this video? Well, I'll start off from the beginning where I bought the game. It is certainly not a pleasant one because when the game is released, it is said that the game is not available in my country. It's odd that I can buy the season passes of the game, but I cannot buy the actual game itself. Turns out this was a glitch and it is later fixed, but that doesn't make the experiences any less annoying. The game begins proper with the ability to create your own character. Now that is quite interesting. So the player character is an unnamed junior deputy who, alongside other members of the US Marshals, are apprehending Joseph Seed, a leader of a cult. The opening scene is quite spectacular, to be honest. The game establishes very well that the villain Joseph Seed is very influential and can make the cultists to obey his commands even if they are pretty freaking insane. A threat is established and a goal is set. We have to take back Hope County from this evil villainous false prophet, rescue your teammates, and liberate this oppressive regime once and for all. And yes, the game does the Easter egg ending where you can just wait for a couple of minutes and then the game just ends. But unlike Far Cry 4 where it is without a doubt the best ending for the game, this isn't a good ending at all. We'll get to the endings later. So the game begins proper with you exploring the island, doing a couple of objectives with your basic starting weapons, and gradually progressing from where you're doing your typical Far Cry stuff. Once you pass the tutorial, the game will notify that you can do multiplayer. I've tried co-op multiplayer for this game, but it turns out that co-op multiplayer is only available for one person online, with them bringing their companions along the way. And by companions, I mean AI companions. Not only that, but you also can't do story missions co-op, I think for very obvious reasons if you just follow the story for the game. So what is different between Far Cry 4 and Far Cry 5? Well, for one, the game is a lot more atmospheric and immersive, so the game will barely use any sorts of music and let you to seamlessly merge with the environment. Music only plays in combat scenes and the menus around. There's no minimap, which gives the game a bit of a Skyrim vibe, especially with the compass being put on the top. But for all the attempts of the game being more immersive, the game decides to remove a lot of the stuff that are already cool. Where are those really cool animations where your character is injured and you had to desperately heal yourself to get your health back? The health system of the game is simplified beyond belief, to the point of going back to the good old health regeneration, except this time it is a lot slower. Unlike the other Far Cry games, you also cannot craft medikits, so if your health is low and you don't have any medikits despite tons of herb stocks that you have, you will be obliterated in seconds. In the previous games, if you don't have medikits, you can just heal yourself and the animation will proceed to heal you. It is unrealistic, but it is cool. Also, these animations are slower than when you just stab syringes to yourself. So while it is infinity, you're not exactly gonna get your health fixed in due time. It is bizarre that the game decides to remove it instead of fixing it, like giving a separate button from healing with a syringe or manual healing so you can conserve your syringe for later as a quick fix, a feature that the other two games certainly do not have. What else has changed? Oh yeah, in the previous games you get experiences for killing enemies. You stack up those experiences and you will get experience points that you can spend on anything. Very traditional and works quite well. In this game, you get experience points by exploring stashes on the map and get perk magazines that are spread around the area. Now yes, the pepper stashes segments are pretty cool. They are quite varying from time to time and every stash offers unique experiences. They can be in some ways a substitute for the tower puzzles from the previous games, which this game also doesn't have. So if you want to reveal the map, you have to manually explore it yourself. This is an improvement certainly, but going back to the pepper stashes, they are pretty well designed. It's just that I don't see why you have to use those as a substitute for the traditional XP gains from the other games. Now the game does have challenges of some sort where you can gain perks through completing certain requirements, but a lot of them are quite arbitrary, when in the previous game you can just keep scoring headshots to gain XP. And since you don't get experiences for doing your job well, or at least you do until the game doesn't let you, the only reward that you will get for clearing an outpost undetected is $1,000. So while the game still rewards stealth, the reward is significantly less satisfying. I don't need more money, I need more experiences so that I can can do more cool stuff with my character. And speaking of stealth, the melee weapon is overhauled. Right now, the machete is not only the melee weapon that you carry, you will instead carry blunt weapons and... goodbye machete, you've been a great friend. That's right, the game will give you a variety of blunt weapons ranging from pipes, baseball bats, wooden planks, etc. but will completely discard machetes and knives for some reason. All of the melee weapons in the game are blunt weapons. The absence of blades in this game with the exception of the throwing knife is certainly concerning. The knife throw takedown in the previous two games are certainly overpowered to an insane degree, so Ubisoft decided to depower it to the point of uselessness. Don't even bother doing knife throw takedowns, or more accurately throwing your current melee weapon away takedown. In fact, the special takedowns as a whole are severely depowered in this game. The game will tease you with tons and tons of great takedown moves like the chain takedown, the knife throw takedown, the sidearm takedown, etc. But none of those things are as useful as the last two games because they can be interrupted, you are open to damage, and I swear to God the button prompts for both the chain and the sidearm takedown are broken. Let's talk about the cultists for a second because I think there's something wrong with them. Obviously there is, but I'm talking about the gameplay aspect. I'm talking about them as enemies for you to shoot. You might notice that the cultists are fighting you with the starting assault rifle. They will also fight you with the starting sniper rifle, starting pistol, starting LMGs, the basic rocket launchers, starting shotguns, and as you play the game further and further, you might notice that the cultists don't exactly have a great arsenal other than the starting weapons. This is something that the previous Far Cry games are capable of at least diversifying a bit. Every cultist member for some reason carried the same goddamn starting weapons. If you as the player can purchase sights, extended magazines, customize the weapon skin, etc., then why the hell can't the cultists? Is it to signify that they are one of a kind? Is it to signify that they're a bunch of close-minded zealots with zero creativity? Would have been interesting if that was the intended message, but in reality, you'll only end up with cultists that uses the starting assault rifle all the freaking time. Wouldn't it hurt to have some hunter enemies that carry explosive arrows, or enemies that carry sidearm grenade launchers, or enemies that actually use reflex sights that will give them a much better aim than their freaking iron sights? It will absolutely hurt as hell and it will come out of nowhere, but it will make the game to be more suspenseful and challenging, wouldn't it? And speaking of enemies, I love that enemies can now carpet bomb you from the air, but after you take down an entire region, they just refuse to spawn in that region. Some helicopters, but no freaking planes. I mean, come on, it's really damn cool to shoot an incoming plane with a freaking explosive arrow. That requires skills and precision, and it's very much rewarding to do so. I think the enemy carrying the most basic weapons in the game is somewhat tight with the microtransactions. Now I initially don't mind the microtransactions lingering overhead because the game is already way too easy with the starting weapons to begin with, but I think Ubisoft deliberately makes the enemies to only have the starting weapons so that the players are more incentivized to buy the premium currency, which if the enemies would be given any sort of weapon variety, make the premium currency completely obsolete. If this is true Ubisoft, then screw you to the depths of hell. It might sound like I am ready to piss all over Far Cry 5, but honestly, despite the changes that would make me want to drink freaking bleach, I have tons and tons of fun with this game. It still has the essential Far Cry experience and satisfaction of blowing things up, shooting cultists in the head, and now you can actually use planes to gun down enemies from sky high. So while the essential Far Cry experience is here, it's the really minor changes and Ubisoft's rather worrying trend of downgrading certain elements that make me want to throw up. There are so many things that are just fine, but Ubisoft changed it for the sake of making the game to be slightly different, when in some cases you don't really have to change them. And speaking of downgrade, the story is a massive downgrade from the previous games. At least Far Cry 4 has an interesting villain. The villains on this one is just boring. They're uninteresting. They don't have much character. They're not well developed. You don't exactly feel sympathy or rage towards them. They're just sort of there. They are there as the big bosses for you to kill in a video game, which is absolutely freaking disappointing. And now let's talk about the endings. Good God, the endings of this game. In my last Far Cry 5 video that specifically focuses on game journalists demanding this game to be more political, I defended Far Cry 5 for being a very lighthearted game. Then the endings pop up and it completely destroys this prospect. All endings of this game sucked. None of them are good. None of them. It's a strange and bizarre antithesis to the game's rather cheerful and upbeat tone. It's a sad and depressing ending that only makes me feeling empty and unsatisfied after getting out of it. Now yes, the previous Far Cry games have these endings, but at least they established early on that the world is screwed no matter what you do. This game doesn't do that. This game lures you into a false sense of hope, freedom, and liberation before yanking it off completely out of nowhere. So after the ending, I ditched the game. I clocked in at 30 to 31 hours and I am done. I'm not striving for 100% completion and I still have my front mission Mass Effect to finish. Far Cry 5 is a fun experience, but fun in a sense that there are tons and tons of asterisks that need to be put alongside it. It's fun in a sense that it has the essential Far Cry experience, but it falls down in so many aspects that it made me left the game feeling empty and unsatisfied. Apparently this is Ubisoft's second best-selling game, so congratulations for at least making the game to sell pretty well, but still, this game could have been so much better in a lot of respects. So is it a good experience? Is it a fun experience? Well, for the most part, yes. It's just that the niggles that I have can amount to really big ones to the point where it's glaringly noticeable. This is a great game, without a doubt. It's beautiful, immersive, well put together, and I have tons of fun with it. It's just that the game could have been so much more. So that's my overall experience with Far Cry 5. If you want these sorts of my experience videos on video games or films or any other entertainment media, do comment below and let me know about it. Oh, and before I forget, huge thanks to Julius, Nyolagar, Samuel, and Mr. Asmodeus for the pledges on Patreon. You guys are fantastic.